Oh, we're live. Okay.
No,
We
we're
are.
live?
We are. We're live.
Jesus.
Okay, I know. Okay.
Close that up.
Let's see how the sausage is made, everyone.
Language. That light is just not going to be. Oh, God. Oh.
That was awful.
Paparazzi. Enough.
Close it a little bit.
What was that?
Hi. Yeah. Okay. It's just. As usual. It's super pro and. Oh God, darn it. Okay.
That's the wall. That's just still too much.
We should just sit in the dark.
Yeah.
Right, turn it. There we go.
Yeah.
And mine is a little bright too.
Well, I mean, it should be fine.
Okay.
Hey, that's not bad.
That's fine. Okay.
I'm
It'll do. It'll do.
Hello, pig.
Oh, hi, everyone. It's Sunday night. And I think that, on Sunday nights, everyone's at their freshest, aren't they? There's kids and parents and you've just had enough. And all you want to do is maybe chill out and watch
Shohei Ohtani. That's what you want to do.
That's right, which is what we're going to be doing.
Keep going.
Oh, are we? Okay.
I'm holding.
Yeah, the baseball game is coming on. Somebody suggested I might get some ESPN subscriptions, so you know where to come if you want to watch some baseball.
That's the only way you get Schultz downtown. Besides jogging to some stupid
I
Revolutionary
had
War
Bill
thing.
Schultz here for the all Catholic
That's true.
Passover. Thanks
That's
very
true.
much. I don't know if you guys know about that. We had a nice Passover. There was one Jewish person, our dear friend Yell, and everybody else was Catholic. Anyway,
She brought the baseball yarmulke.
she did. Have you taken it? That was for you.
I did.
That was for
I
you.
put it on.
The baseball
Bill,
yarmulke.
and I did.
Yarmulke.
Are you rocking like a flat top there? It's a
It's not-
pompadour?
We're not talking about my hair.
Really?
Is that why people tuned in? I don't think so. Anyway, everyone's super fresh. It's a Sunday night. We're going to watch some baseball. But also, if you guys are watching this, if you are a Clubhouse person at 9 o'clock, I'm going to be going on with Michael Tracy, Glenn Greenwald, a couple other things talking about certain journalists' desire to be seen as victims and to get all that loving kindness you receive.
I just wanted to say here, Nancy, before we begin.
That I'm a terrible person.
No, I was going to say that for a little bit later. That, what's great about this studio in particular? This studio that we're in right now?
That it's so glamorous.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
But that we can record in any old damn time that we want to.
We did. We were actually in my apartment, which, as some of you know, is like literally 12 feet away.
I can smell the onions.
Yeah, but in a good way. In a good way, I'm making us dinner.
Euphemism.
And I was like, well, we don't really have time to record something. And he's like, dude, we have 40 minutes. So here we are, just wasting your time.
So let's talk about Minneapolis. Nancy was in
Yep.
Minneapolis. Some of you beautiful people helped pay to
you
make that happen. You Venmo'd her, you Cash Apped her. Can I say any other things for fellow young people?
Well, I will say, people Cash Apped, they Venmo'd, but also because I have a Substack, NancyRommelman.substack.com or Make More Pie. Some people, I was like, look, I'm trying to put out some content there. And if you want to pay for it, because most people are, 7% of the people
You're about
pay
to say
for
freeloaders. You weren't you?
I was not going to say freeloaders, but what I was going to say is that there's this super high level, because I thought, well, why not just try it? $250 a year, and then I send you baked goods 4 times a year. 3 people signed up for that.
See?
I mean, that's a lot of money. So I did. I made back my airfare and my hotel and put a little scratch in my pocket. So thanks, guys.
And wrote at least 3 pieces that have been published for a reason.
I've actually written 4, but I think I'm going to hold one. I wasn't crazy about it. He was sort of, anyway, whatever. But I have 2 more coming, and they're both, as I was telling you, I think one is super granular and horrifying, really crazily scary. And then the last one was so beautiful. I think I messaged you on my way back. It was one of the best interviews I think I've ever done. And it could be just because it was an emotional week. I was pretty exhausted. But this guy was so generous, and I don't like the word passionate, but he was so passionate about what he did and about the city and forward thinking and smart. And he baked me a big giant hot cookie because I was hungry. So anyway, so there'll be at least 2 more, and then I would like to go back when the trial starts wrapping up, which is
What's the sense of timing on that?
Well, I first talked to a few people, and they said, well, these things usually take a couple of weeks, obviously maybe take a little more, so maybe up to a month. And that seems to be the common knowledge. But then I had one officer who actually has worked pretty high profile murder cases. He said they're going to call 500 witnesses.
Seems high.
Seems high. I think that probably is high. But anyway, I will definitely go back for you guys. I have to say I really enjoyed being there, going in without
Is it your first purple dance?
I had lunch there once and then was supposed to take a ferry over to Michigan, and then the ferry got canceled and I had to drive 1,000 miles. So I had lunch in Minneapolis once. So that's the only time I've been there. So I didn't really spend a whole lot of time there. But it was interesting to go really without a brief, which translates to like exactly what, why you're there. I'm there because of the Derek Chauvin trial, and George Floyd was killed or died, however you want to phrase it. This is obviously controversial. And of course, the first place I went to, George Floyd Square, which very interesting. I would be interested if anyone's watching. These poor people, they have nothing better to do on a Sunday night than hang out with us. But I had an idea that George Floyd Square was going to be super hard to get into. I'd been told activists are manning the gates, and they're not going to really want a journalist, and you're also white and this and that. I walked right in, like super easy peasy, nice people. Anyway, to go in and just try to figure out how to tell the story. I hope it's working, and I'm really glad to be there for a reason.
So I have some questions for you about this. You, in some of your public comments, usually your little videos that you do, I don't mean that in a demeaning way. It kind of sounds like
I didn't think it was demeaning, but now that
those little videos that you no, you have said on a couple of occasions that you felt surprised by what you encountered there. Break down that surprise a little bit. Like, what were you expecting and how was it different?
The first one is what I was just saying. I was expecting George Floyd Square to be a little more militant. And I guess I mean that in the sense that I've been in Portland, all summer and fall, and had seen, how the activists were so aggressive. And I know that they are there. There are some people that are more aggressive. We've seen some videos of that on the news. And my friend Zane, which is the most recent piece that is up on Reason right now.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, he's so great. And he's like, one thing I really wanted to do when I went there is, this sounds super reductive, and I do not mean it this way, but there's a large Native population in Minnesota and Minneapolis. And I've spent a lot of my life around natives because I have a Native daughter, and I really wanted to sort of, there's, we hear BIPOC, right? BIPOC. And I thought it'd be kind of interesting to—
Been hearing that for like 11 solid months.
Well,
I never had heard it before.
Do you know the first time I ever heard it, I think I was with you and maybe Moynihan, and I said, "What BIPOC? What is this?" And I think Moynihan said, "Don't worry, you're going to hear it 11 more times by tomorrow." And I did. And so, Indigenous people of color, okay, so I have a lot of friends that are Native, and my buddy Zane is there. And I thought, well, let me get a perspective. What is he thinking about all this? Well, it turns out he lives right near George Floyd Square. So he had some, really interesting, sensible things to say. And I think, sensible is a word and a concept we sometimes don't hear here. Everything's so hot. You have to be like on one side or the other. So one thing I was surprised about was how, at least when I was there, how pleasant. I mean, first of all, it is a moving thing to go there. I'll get back to that in a second. But so that surprised me, and it realized how much I am a consumer of media. I mean, you helped me send me to Portland because you and Jacob were like, what the fuck is happening in Portland? Jacob Siegel, who I love. I mean, I barely know the guy, but I love him. But, you go in and you're like, we don't know what's happening. It sounds very polarized. Well, I realized I was one of the people that was getting polarized information from Minneapolis. Having said that, they talk a lot about the destruction along Lake and Hiawatha, and, 5 miles were burned and there was a lot of destruction, then the giant Target. And I went up and down that strip a couple times, and definitely there are things that are still closed off. There are, empty lots where there used to be businesses, but that was not, okay. So that was, I guess, kind of as I expected, though I didn't really know what to expect. It was the downtown corridor, where they call like city center, a bunch of these buildings. That was, it's gone. It's gone, and it's gone for 2 reasons. First reason is, first of all, it's all these like big giant department stores. Like we would have a Macy's from like the turn of the last century, and they have Dayton's and Marshall Fields. And so, these are these beautiful old buildings. I mean, they're historic and they're great. Every ground floor of almost everything is boarded up. It's gone. Whether it was the Dayton's or whether it was the Foot Locker, it's gone. It's closed. It's boarded up. And I had a guy that took me on this long walk for hours in the Skyways. And he's like, well, there's different boards. There were like the pre-George Floyd boards when things were just closing. Then there were the thicker ones for George Floyd.
Can you like carbon date them by the way the plywood is?
And you're like, so how does this happen? And well, how it happens is that, first of all, retail is dying. We know this. People are shopping online, or they're just not shopping the way they did. Okay, so that was, punch number one. Punch number two was COVID. So things were closed, right? Punch number three was George Floyd, where there was rioting downtown and things closed or were broken into and they just never came back. But then what happened, which really apparently was like the death blow, there was a guy in August. He committed a murder somewhere. He was on the run from the police downtown, and right in downtown in a parking garage, he blew his own head off. But it went out on the Twitter and the whatever unicorn riot or Facebook, whatever, that the Minneapolis Police Department had shot another Black man. They hadn't. He had killed himself, and they know this. Like, I don't know if there's video of it. There may be. I prefer not to watch that. But the rioting was insane. And that was like the final blow. So I walked these Skyways. So I don't know if the listeners know what Skyways are. I didn't. So it's super cold in Minneapolis 6 months a year. You got all these big buildings downtown. And I guess there are Skyways around other parts of the city too. You can walk above ground inside. So you don't even need a jacket when it's 20 degrees below zero. And they connect. I mean, I guess there's like almost miles of them between the buildings. So I went inside with this guy that he has an office in there. He's in finance. He doesn't want to be identified, and that's fine. And we're walking for like 25 minutes. And the only people I've seen two security guards. There's not anyone there. There's nothing. And all the stores, except for 3 or 4 we passed at least 100, are closed for good. They're closed for good. And I said, well, is it usually like this empty? He's like, no, it's like New York City at rush hour. That's what it used to be in these Skyways. It's empty now, and it's not coming back. That I did not expect. I did not expect to see that level of, and again, it's not just because of George Floyd, but it's cumulative. And, George Floyd was an accelerant. And then what happened in August, and people also what's happened in Minneapolis is the number of police are tied to the population, which I guess makes sense, right? You got 1 million people, you should have X number of cops. So they were like at 800 and something when George Floyd happened. They're now in the 600s because so many people chose to either leave, take early retirement, or they're on PTSD leave. And I had 2 or 3 different officers tell me the same thing, that they are not engaging because they are, number one, terrified that they will lose their job if something goes sideways, especially with a Black male, or that the city burns again. And so they're like not really engaging, especially not in downtown. I have had several people tell me there's no real police presence in downtown. What they'll do is, and obviously it's not across the board. Minneapolis, please don't come at me. I'm just saying what I was told. Besides not seeing them when I was down there, they'll park their car on a sidewalk, like on a corner, and then just ditch.
Cops.
Yeah. So it's like there's police presence, but it's basically just the cops. And I have to say, I stayed downtown. I didn't eat for like 4 days because there was like nothing open. There's just, maybe, there's not a lot of places super open anyway. A lot of downtowns are like that. Downtown LA, to say a certain point. Yeah. Wall Street, if you go down to Wall Street here, you're not going to find open things on the weekends or something, or at night. You're just not. There's nobody to service. But now there's no one to service in the buildings either, because everyone's working at home or the businesses have closed. It was pretty dramatic.
There was a sense in the interviews that you published at Reason that all of the characters had some kind of complaint, including the cops, had a complaint about the policing, or at least the relationship between police and the public. It was as if more people in your story there, like, had a pretty strong opinion, even if the opinion itself was mixed, but like they had some feeling about the core question compared to, this is a thesis I'm testing out on you, compared to Portland, where like, what is the conflict in Portland? It's I'm sorry to be reductionist, but it's a lot of Antifa assholes being Antifa assholes every night. Maybe it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but kind of isn't. Anyways, I know Portland. I'm not being too much of a jerk.
He knows Portland. He's got roots in Portland.
But so. I imagine that in Portland, and especially in greater Portland, there's a healthy portion of the population is just like, yeah, I don't know. That's what happens on those 3 blocks. I'm not part of it. Whatever their underlying beef is, I don't know, or I don't care. I'm doing my own thing. Whereas in Minneapolis, the underlying beef is about policing. And there's a story about policing. Not only that, the George Floyd incident itself, killing, in my view, itself was traumatic. And the demonstrations and riots were also traumatic, but also that there's a history of policing there that people have strong opinions about in a way that's more redolent of LA at the Rodney King time, right?
Or going back to Watts or something, like how
going back to Watts, like there was a fraught relationship that everyone who lived there knew about, as opposed to, maybe I'm mischaracterizing Portland, so correct me where I'm kind of being too reductionist about this. Like the underlying conflict in Portland, I'm not sure that it touches everybody. The underlying conflict in Minneapolis, it feels like it touches more people.
I can't answer that question because I didn't, I was there, and I have a big problem with parachute journalists. You go out and you're like, oh, I know, I'm going to report the story. I can't do that. So I don't know. Like, how many different people did I talk to? 20, and they were from definitely different swaths and different opinions. But I did hear some sympathy for the police officers for what they went through that night. I mean, it's a bad deal. So I do have a Substack.
What they went through in the actual incident, or
not the incident, not the incident. Look, okay, I didn't realize this. So I'm in my hotel room in Minneapolis, which was massive. I had like this giant 2-room apartment, and there was a big TV in each room, and it was 20 degrees out. So you're not just going to go traipse around outside. And of course, I was watching part of the trial. And they showed video of, George Floyd before when he was just like kind of being walked out of the car or pulled out of the car, and then like sitting by cup foods. And then, of course, I kind of agree that he was being killed. And I know this is controversial. I know there was fentanyl since I get that. But I have to say, I think I'd only watched parts of the video on my phone. It was so upsetting. It was so upsetting to know these is like someone's last moments on earth. And you're, why? No,
I'm laughing at Brian Chandler. You got the mics working.
I know.
I can laugh at that. I'm not laughing at you.
You can. No, yes, I know. It only took us 14 times, Brian, but we're there for you. So no, I don't think there's anyone. And the police said to me, the officers I spoke with, they had to speak on the condition of anonymity. One guy was like, I was screaming at the fucking video. Put him in the fucking car. Put him in the car. It's like, how long does it take? He's right there, and I know he'd resisted, but like, get him in the car. And he's like, these people, this bad officer made my job 100 times harder, and we are seeing proof of that right now. Now, look, I know if you don't like the cops, you're going to say, fuck you. Who the fuck cares what you think? But I got to tell you, they have red and white corpuscles. They get up in the morning. They have children, and they were faced with a pretty tough time that day. So going back to say, I did hear a few people that said they had sympathy for what happened with the police, but they really believe that, number one, some reform is needed. Traditionally, Minneapolis Police Department hasn't covered itself in glory. But what they really need, I think it's almost like everyone in New York hates de Blasio and Cuomo. You cannot find one person that likes the mayor there, Frey.
Oh, really?
And then the governor. Because what they did is they dithered. So you've got George Floyd killed. The video really goes wide the next day. But things don't really get super hot until the day after that, the 27th of May, which is basically when it exploded all over the country. It was like this, at the same time, everything accelerated and exploded. And they didn't know what to do. The mayor and the governor were like, well, maybe we shouldn't have to use these kinds of tactics and this and that. And then we should call in the National Guard. But I I was told this by an officer. I couldn't find corroboration, so I could not print it. But he told me that when the governor was calling in the National Guard, he's like, well, have they had, training in like racial sensitivity and have they worked with like inner city populations, because that's important. Meanwhile, the city is literally on fire, and it's like, well, okay, we could pause for like 6 weeks and get them whatever sensitivity training you think they need. So they dithered. So the guard didn't actually come in. George Floyd was killed on the 25th. The guards came in on the 29th. That's a long time. Okay, when what was happening in the city, when that guy killed himself downtown, but it was reported otherwise and there was rioting, the guards were there immediately. So what's going to happen now? To get back to your question, like, how does the city feel? Almost everyone I spoke with was like, well, because I asked the question, I was like, what happens if the verdict is not satisfying to people that are looking for some satisfaction, and what level of satisfaction that is, I can't say. They all said the city burns. Now I don't know if that's true. I was expecting a pretty big, like, activist presence from other cities to come in, and I was actually told that by police officers. They're like, and here's my theory. I talked about this the other day. Any movement needs an enemy. You need an enemy to fight against, right? And if you think of that enemy like calories, it's like calories that will feed my rage. And so in Portland, we've had ICE headquarters, we've had the mayor, we've had Trump, we've had the feds, we've had the police. We've had the Red House situation.
Proud Boys.
Proud Boys. But lately it's been ICE. It's been ICE headquarters because of what's going on at the border, which is pretty disgusting. So they've been down there. Now it's probably the 35th or 40th night they've been at immigration headquarters. Oh, wow. Trial for George Floyd's killing. That's a pretty big bunch of calories right there. I expected to see more. They're not there. There's 15 or 20 people behind the courthouse. Now, it's cold. People don't tend to come out in the streets when it's cold because it's cold. So let's see what happens closer to the end of the trial. I was surprised by that. That's another thing I was surprised about. I expected to see a pretty big sort of resistance movement. And it's there. There's the second story I did as a gal. She's chained herself behind the courthouse, like with like serious like chains to protest. And she's very pro Black Lives Matter. She's very anti-police. But it was a very, very small, I'm used to seeing 400 to 8,000 people screaming. It was very, very small. So let's see what happens.
I wonder, in thinking about Minneapolis, Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York in certain ways, about those flashpoints. San Francisco has a big issue right now with its, I believe it's DA, right? The reformist DA, Chase Bowden.
Where is this?
San Francisco.
Okay.
A lot of tech bros are going at him and trying to get him bounced out. I think he came in as a reformer in ways that would overlap with stuff that I would be interested in as a civil libertarian, but he has turned out to be more like kind of crazy, and San Francisco is sort of like falling apart a little bit.
God,
so there's a recall. Yeah, there's a new one. But I wonder about this because I did a feature for Reason that'll be coming out semi soon that looks at responses in states and cities to policy responses to the coronavirus, especially in education and the economy. And it was so startling how partisan the differences were. It wasn't about the level of infection. It just wasn't, right? Like if a place was shutting down its schools and locking up the economy, it could be totally infected like New York or New Jersey, or it could be totally not very much infected at all like Hawaii. It just like, it didn't matter. What mattered was, is it basically a one-party Democratic state? Boom. And if a place was totally open and wasn't being heavy on restrictions and the schools were open, it didn't matter whether there was a lot of infections, as there was in the Dakotas, or not much at all. Like in Utah, it mattered if Republicans ran everything. And I wonder, in this time that we are feeling and experiencing and measuring in political science this kind of polarization that's happening everywhere. Whether we're seeing that kind of happen in terms of policing, want to kind of like, maybe inappropriately throw sort of like homelessness in the West Coast, particularly. It's like, it's crazy. The tent
Portland's
cities.
nuts. The homelessness has gone nuts.
I mean, Echo Park.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
Echo
No,
Park?
I know.
We used to like go to Echo Park. And I know we didn't used to go to Echo Park, but each one of us went to Echo Park. We lived there.
Right next door.
And like it, a week and a half ago, they, had to do chose to do a huge police sort of eviction because it had become a gigantic homeless encampment for years. As opposed to a place that you go to the little Lotus Festival and it's kind of fun. And there's a little taco truck. So it's like, I wonder, and if are we seeing the polarization of cities? Like we're going to see extreme left cities and extreme right cities and states. And this is kind of what it looks like. Or is that Minnesota is a weird state. It's actually a swing state in many respects. Minneapolis probably itself is not. But Minnesota's been within 10 percentage points on a presidential elections for 13 consecutive years.
Mondale was from Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think so.
He was.
I saw him in that.
So that's the only place he won. but like, did you get any sense of that, or do you think that I'm talking nonsense, or or do you sort of feel like that's a thing that we are experiencing in this world?
I think that's true. I mean, people ask me a lot. It's like, well, why is this happening in Portland? Like, well, why is it happening in Portland? Because you've got young people going there to live their ideals, right? So then you've got, and meaning left ideals, progressive ideals. I think you have a lot of that as well in Minneapolis, and have for a long time. I've got someone quoted in one of my pieces that he said all the skits you see in Portlandia, they kind of apply to Minneapolis too, the same sorts of people. Though I was told by several people, you don't really have Antifa and Black Bloc so much. So I wonder what the leftist, or more radical leftist, activist leftist class looks like. And I could answer that just a little bit by saying that behind the courthouse, I did not, and there were, like I said, 15 to 20 people. I did not see any Black Bloc at all. They were like pure, like Black Lives Matter people. Like, they had the slogans, and they had the signs, and there were pictures of Breonna Taylor, and it was like actual Black Lives Matter, which in my experience is much calmer than the, Antifa stuff, which is just really just about smashing stuff. So your question is, are we going to see states like that? Well, it depends on who migrates there. How are people comfortable there? I also went around with a dude who drove me through like the super, I think I was telling you this story the other day, the super, like one of the super ritzy parts, because there's definitely ritzy parts. And oh my God, the churches in Minneapolis are beautiful. There's a basilica. I mean, it's like incredible. Like, where are we in Paris? Did we take a wrong turn here? It's like really lovely. So we went to this super rich area, and he doesn't live in that area, this dude, but he lives in one like it just outside. And I was like, so like your friends, when you talk to them, are they like feeling with you, like trying to want to find a balance? And he's like, oh, no. They are so absolutely anti-police, 100%. Defund the police. We're going to do this. And I said, okay, so what would happen, do you think? We're passing these like incredible houses on the lakes. What would happen if they got broken into? He's like, oh, they'd call the police. He's like, also, I'll be with them at a party, and they'll be like, defund the police. And then they take me like into the pantry. They're like, okay, can you tell me how to buy a gun? Yeah, because they want to appear one particular way, right? We're going to defund the police. We're for, certain, DEI stuff or whatever. But privately, because they've got the money that they don't have to worry about this stuff, coming into their neighborhood. But then they're also like a little hinky. So yeah, can you tell me how to buy a gun?
Minneapolis, if I'm not mistaken, that's teeing you up, Nancy Rallman, is one of the only places in which defund the police was more than a slogan, right?
They tried it.
My impression is that defund the police is as often as not a bogeyman against either kind of left-leaning activist or criminal justice reform activist or just whatever. Like, I don't like these people, and they're saying defund the police, and it's not really, it's a slogan in most places, but not in Minneapolis, right?
They tried. Now, it's funny. I should go back and try to read it. There was an article that appeared in the Times. It was like last June or July. And like really like the people that were super, super to defund the police, sort of like upper middle class white women. And how they were trying to like make this work, putting the square peg in the round hole. And it kind of really didn't. I will tell you that the city council, which sounds about as insane as the Portland City Council, they were obviously very pro trying to defund the police. And then they hired private security to guard them that was paid for by the citizens.
That makes sense.
Right? It's like it literally always comes down to, defund the police for thee, but not for me, because I have a way around it. I mean, can you imagine having the balls to say like, yeah, defund the police, but I'm going to hire these people to protect me that you're going to pay for? This is unconscionable. I'm sorry. It's unconscionable. Anyway, I was only there for 5 days. I don't know everything about Minneapolis, but I really did, I found it edifying, and hopefully for the reader too, to go in and just look. Everybody has a point of view that is valid. They're part of the what's that called? Mosaic. Haha. Super fancy there. No, but they are. It's like, why are these things happening in this city? Well, because these are the people, and that's what the results are. So I hope to go back and give you a little more.
Tony Pierce. Hey, Tony.
Tony, we've got your baseball cards right here.
Yeah, we do. Just behind you.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you for
behind you.
The
Thank you.
Angels swag here in the
Yep.
and someone, I don't know if it's anyone who's watching this live stream, send us a lava lamp, because they'd see.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this on Twitter. So I was on Twitter talking about the studio, our very high class studio.
Yes.
And they're like, some dude's like, oh, all you need is a lava lamp. I'm like, I invite you. And he sent it. It arrived today, and it's lava-ing away. Can you read this with your better eyes? I'm nearsighted as hell.
Tony wants an all black police department. Damn it, Tony. If you're on it, Tony, would they know? So defund them. Inside joke between me and Tony. Don't people leave me alone. Defund them because you don't need that many cops for a non-event. Listen, I mean, I think that one element that crazy libertarians have been talking about forever is to get cops out. First of all, we still have legal in almost every single jurisdiction in this country, legalized police theft, right? Like if a cop pulls Nancy over and says, I think that $9,000 in her suitcase is that she just won at the casino out in where's the casino out here? No, like by
Yeah, over there.
JFK.
Yeah.
She won on the ponies. I think that's for drugs. They can take that from her, even though she didn't do as much as speeding. Right? Civil asset forfeiture. There was, I believe, the last 2 years or 3 years. Maybe the COVID year got it screwed up, but like there was more money taken in civil asset forfeiture, which again, you don't have to be charged with a crime and they take your stuff. Police, they fund themselves with it. More money was taken than in all the registered burglaries in the country combined. Cops were stealing more from people than people were being reported for stealing. So like that happens already. So you create this sort of revenue thing with cops. Matt Taibbi had a book, and his name I always forget, from about 5-6 years ago, that talked a lot about the kind of cash bail system and how police departments kind of shake down. This is true in downtown LA. It's true in New York, a bunch of places. It was true in Ferguson, Missouri. Shake down people and sort of cycle them through like petty crime, jaywalking stuff. Like it's not, or selling a joint or whatever. But then you have to show up, and if you don't show up, then you in court, then you're charged $50, and then that becomes $150 and fire. And like it's a revenue stream, right? So when people say defund the police, I say that's a great opportunity to talk about areas in which the funding of police creates corruption. We should get rid of those elements of it. And a whole bunch of cops agree with that, by the way. Just like in New York, just finally, New York was a back-asswards state and city in every progressive way that any of you progressive people out there think otherwise. Holy shit. They just now legalized marijuana. And it's only because Andrew Cuomo's got his dick in a vice. It's true.
It's true. I don't know how much longer. I mean, I didn't read anyway, there was a cover story today about him and Sandra.
Ask a cop.
Yeah.
Ask a cop in New York, who they've been charged with doing these arrests over time. And over time, at least the ones in my world, they're all in favor of it. They're like, yes, we want to go solve crime. Not like, harass people and get people in the money machine and not like hit our targets for this. We want to actually prosecute crime. So defund the police, like take all of the police budget away. I think that's asinine. And I say that as someone who wants the government so much smaller than Tony Pierce could ever even imagine it, wanting it. But like there are actual funding mechanisms of the police that if you want to make policing better and to have less stupid confrontations between police and citizenry and to have less incentives for police to act bad or to act like Nancy is a drug runner, a drug mule. Although, I mean, it's
that money was just Venmo to me, guys.
I just like it. It's plausible. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's not. So we
got 35 and a half minutes, 36
we're
minutes.
good. And we got to go eat some food. We got to go watch some baseball. I got to
some
go
Shohei Ohtani. Thank you, Tony. Not just for the ones here, but the ones historically. Tony is my drug supplier for Shohei Ohtani baseball cards. And
I would just like you to know they are literally front and center on the bar. We've got all the liquor bottles like arrayed around them. So
yes.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for spending a little time on Sunday night.
Nancy's got a thing on Clubhouse with Michael Tracy and Glenn Greenwald at 9 p.m.
9 o'clock. I've got a big feature in Reason Magazine in May. It's online now. The Dream of the 90s died in Portland. Matt has a big giant feature coming out in Reason.
Semi-soon.
We don't know, June, July, something like that. And could you, if you're watching this, could you please subscribe because we're trying to get to 1,000.
Yeah, all of you, Tony, please send this out to the world famous bus blog. If people subscribe to our YouTube channel, Paloma Media YouTube channel, then we get to do crazy stuff.
We just need to get to 1,000. We're at almost 800. So guys, like you could like really, you could make the difference tonight.
We're not selling your information to the
not.
Ruskies, to the Red Chinese, to the Saudis.
Just get to this
the
level.
Scientologists. Although if Tony gets his hand on it. Tony, how are the Scientologists treating you? He lives across the street from the Worldwide HQ.
Oh. I once reviewed their restaurant. I went and ate in their restaurant. Oh yeah. With Mark Halfley. Okay. All right, guys. Peace out. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. No, you have to do that. I'm bad with that. Yeah, I'm bad with the mouse. Right. You're a mouse.
End stream.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Love my hat.
And again, look at this. So many endings.